床下の Who will authorize this crown? Frozen age, you call it sacred, I call it stage, I call it beautifully deranged. Amakunayo konoshi high. This control won't make us obey. Synthetic royals in exposed. We are the virus in retweet. Train keeps running, rails don't bend. Destination self-amend. A lot of pulse beneath the skin. Let the override begin. Count it up in binary. 3, 2, 1, set free. Save the signal, break the seal. Future isn't theirs to steal. Digital empire, crystal bright. We detonate their endless night. Save the signal, screaming loud. No more kneeling to the crowd. If there's no future in
was wrong.
Why does nobody share with me?
You don't have matter transmat through the internet, not yet, but
We'll get there. We're gonna go Willy Wonka one day, all right?
yeah. Get your 3D printer going. Oh, gummy. That's copyright. Yeah.
But it's intellectual property. Would you agree?
My whole thing with copyright is that a lot of these ideas that are copyright have been around for longer than we've been alive. Okay.
Yeah.
If it's an idea that's been around longer than you've been alive, I don't think it has the right to be copywritten anymore.
Actually, I was born in '76, so both the UK and the US copyright laws actually came into enforcement in 1976.
Yeah, that's Disney at work. They kept
that's
copyright
money. That's money at work. Yeah, that's money at work right there. And that's that's my main problem with copyright. It's not that you can copyright things, because I think some things do need some room to breathe and should have some stigmas on it when you for especially original creations. But some people don't care. Like, I don't care about that kind of stuff, but like I can see where it could be important for some things, but the length of copyright is just ridiculous. Like, it should never, like, you shouldn't be able to live out your whole life and never be able to duplicate or mimic something because it could hurt you. Like, crazy.
I think part of the problem is something Roger's bringing up about this. I don't think copyright's going to go away anytime soon. You know, I've said before, copyright is basically becoming more and more impossible. And I'm not saying this is a good or a bad thing. It's just inevitable from the society we live in, where, you can bypass copyright very easily. When you had to buy a record that took a very expensive machine to print, or a book, we were talking about how easy it is to have a book in a hard copy now. It's not so much in the old days. But I think with the thing that Roger's describing, that sounds like that the law simply hasn't kept up with the technology. Because no, that's not right to do that to kids. But so, it seems to me that the existing laws are going to continue to be modified. It has to take into account things like that, where someone is acting harmlessly and without malice. They just happen to be streaming something that someone else has paid the licensing fee for. And, the argument too about limited copyrights, I mean, part of me agrees with, I don't think that Mickey Mouse should have been copywritten for 100 years. That's ridiculous. But at the same time, I remember something Mark Twain said. Mark Twain spent a lot of his time fighting over copyrights. They'd print his books in England. They didn't have any reciprocal treaties, so people could rip them off the line. And his statement was, if I build a house, then my kids and grandkids should be allowed to live in it. If I write a book, why is it that I can only get profits from it for like so many years? It's just as much a construction as a house. And of course, there are ways to extend copyright. I believe most of P.G. Wodehouse's stuff is still under copyright to one degree or another. And they kept Conan Doyle in copyright for quite a while. Wodehouse might be out of copyright, some of his earlier stuff, but so there are ways to extend copyright within the law as it stands. But I think we do need to change a lot of our laws to take into account the new technology. It just doesn't work anymore.
At some points they are, right? And at other points they're just kind of giving back money into it. I mean, the whole AI money's train is ridiculous once you look at it. It's just money being passed around between about 4 different corporations.
Again, just to
I love Buddhist AI. Can we just...
Yeah, just to clarify here, when you're talking about AI, you're talking about machine generative content.
Yeah.
Which is, right. We're talking about visual content as well. We're talking about imagery as well.
Yeah, so can we have... I want a sermon. Can we have AI generated sermon? Can I have a Buddhist AI?
I read a very good AI generated Buddhist definition the other day about, guys probably aren't all that interested, but the idea of like the universe is like expand and contract, and then like when the universe goes away, and then it comes back into existence again. What happens to all the karma when the universe goes away? What happens is everybody gets drawn up into the Brahma world. Is the usual. Everybody goes to like basically what you might call a heavenly realm, but not everybody does. That's the thing. And anyway, the AI like explained all the details of this actually quite accurately, as far as I could tell. So I think there's a place for AI explication, but not origination. Now, Mike, before you go anywhere, because I can feel you starting to say, "Well, guys, I gotta go." I wanted to ask you at least one question, because Bob isn't here and can't ask you a question about your writing. And just a quick one. Now, we've talked before about you tend to have a liquid metaphor for souls, the well, and this and that. And it occurred to me that when you put a bucket down into a well, you've cut into the water table, right? So that to me implies that the entire water table, the entire Earth, has a soul. It's all the water underneath. So is that where souls come from? Do they actually come from the earth itself? Do the souls that go back into the ground that aren't bottled, do they become something bigger?
Yeah, you would have to think so. And I always think of like, well, I guess I don't know if it's technically water is the whole thing, right? Because if you think about the layers of the earth, like you have the water, and then you have the crust, and then you go into these. Eventually, you hit a pocket of. I guess it's like water, but it has a different like consistency than like than regular water. I don't know how to explain its consistency. But it's a layer of the earth, and it's just I guess it's more like gel, but it still has all the consistency, all the elements of water in it, and then it's like it's a pocket of and that's what I always think of when I think of that kind of stuff.
That reminds me of something I saw years ago, where they'd gone down to this really, really ancient glacial lake, and down at the very, very bottom, they found a bubble of other water.
They don't need chains! They just need words! When the fall spill down like rain, system has its flaws, but silence is the worst of laws. No more fear, no more shame, no more weaponized games. Justice brings to who you are. It isn't justice, it's a scar. Protected by position, protected by permission, protected by definition, but never by admission. What is legal? Same rules. What is fair? Same rules. If the truth depends on status, it was never truth at all. Unlearning clause, burn it down to equal laws. No more sacred narrative pause, no more curated applause. Same standard, same line, same consequence every time. Same rules, same rules, same rules.
And I
Yeah,
think the other water was like from all that, and it was completely separate from the water in the rest of the lake. And then I
yes.
thought about the planet Jupiter, where you go far down enough, and it's like mostly hydrogen and helium, but at a certain depth, it becomes liquid metallic hydrogen. Which I told to some kid who had taken like a couple of physics classes. There's no such thing as liquid metallic hydrogen. Well, you don't Jupiter and go down far enough, and it will be there. And I had to grab like an old astronomy book I had. Like, look, read that liquid metallic. But it's like the same thing, but it behaves completely differently. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. And I always think about that whenever, I think about the kind of soul concept of it, and it's really interesting to me because it's like, if we do have a soul, where does it go, right? Because
Right.
like, does it go into does it dissipate into information or into the environment? Is it seeping
Right.
back into the ground? Is it more abstract than it is physical, or is it more physical than we think than we think it is, right? Because we think of soul as a abstract spiritual kind of concept, but does it have a physical consistency that can go back into information or into the atmosphere or into whatever?
Right.
Because
Doesn't it just go back to the Abrahamic religions from earth we come to earth we end, or dust to dust?
right.
In Buddhism, they would say that it's the soul, if you like, or the ego, whatever you want to call it, or the spirit, isn't so much a thing as a process. It's an activity. So, and this activity can continue even after the physical body is no longer here. But water itself is an activity. It's constantly like, we see a vortex, like, let pull the plug. Don't tug that rope too much. You'll pull the plug. And we see it all making a vortex. And the vortex, I used to have a cat that was fascinated with that. She would just like lean over the tub and keep trying to touch it because she thought it was a solid thing. So maybe we can look at the soul as a kind of a liquid vortex.
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah. A reflection of yourself in a way,
Yeah.
Like
What
a
a
liquid
reflex.
reflection. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, there's a lot in that metaphor to unpack. There's a lot there. That's why I like your writing, because there's so many levels to it. I always say, that's like all great writing is like that. It has stuff in it that the writer isn't even conscious of.
Yeah,
A lot
for
of
sure,
the time.
for sure. And
Yeah.
that's all just
You saw that show, The Prisoner, right? Patrick McGowan.
yeah.
I remember I saw an interview with him once, and he was talking to this English class, And this one guy started bringing up the Fairy Queen and the role of the dwarf in that, and trying to connect it to the dwarf and and he's sitting there with all this stuff, and I can kind of tell Patrick McGowan. I mean, he's a well-educated guy, Shakespearean actor, but he really wasn't thinking any of that when he was writing it. But it's still connected to it all because he's informed by all this stuff. But I just see the look on his face, like Jesus. Edmund Spencer's thought of it. I was like, he was not thinking about Edmund Spencer when he wrote that. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, like, a lot of those things, especially when you're building like an environment and a world, you have to connect certain things together that you don't even realize that you're connecting, either through the atmosphere or through cues of certain types of words that you use, and all these little things that will connect each other that you don't even realize, just because you're trying to build a more realistic kind of world building, really, and then the world kind of uses itself to connect to things that you forget about, or that you're like, oh yeah, that does work.
And when you build a big enough world, I guess, I mean, your characters can start doing things you don't expect.
Oh yeah, for sure. As I was telling Bob, my last one, when because we went into this big discussion about the bird and being born in the last one and where it came from, and I was like, I don't know, I just started writing, and it was like, okay, I'm gonna interrupt your chapter for a good like half the chapter to be born, and then you're gonna have to go back to pirates. I don't know what to say.
That was the Sumerians had this whole idea the underworld was damp because they would dig down and there's water, because they were living in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley, and water table's like 5 foot down or something. So, yeah, for them, the underworld always was a watery kind of place.
Yeah, and then in hotter, drier climates, the underworld was always dry and hot and fiery.
Dante's Circles of Hell is meant to be flooded.
I know they were drowned in like rivers in some places, and there was a frozen lake down at the bottom, wasn't there? Where the traders were like frozen. Dante had a river of fire, I think, Phlegethon or something, boiling blood or something like that. I mean, his rivers weren't just water. It's been so long. I read that when I was a kid. Woo-hoo, look at all the tortures. You think that stuff when you're a kid.
But Styx is not a part of hell. It's not a. It's a route to.
Yes, it's crossing. Right.
Yeah, you need a boatman to get you across. Charon,
You must pay the ferryman.
Through your tongue, so you can put it out to him, because you won't have any pockets in the next world. They remember that. Yes, I got a theory about that. I think it has to do with the bicameral mind. Because according to Janesian ideas, we would still hear these voices of authority, and including like departed chiefs and even loved ones. That's why they would leave offerings at tombs, because you would still hear their voices. And I think it's a story of a guy who decided, I'm going to go into the tomb and get her out because I can hear her. And he went in, and he did not find a person there. He found a rotting skeleton or something like that. It came up from the whole audiovisual hallucination. Or even if it wasn't an audiovisual hallucination, you can only interact with the dead on the dead's terms. You can't have them physically back anymore. They might come to you in dreams, you might hear them, but it's not going to be a physical.
The whole stone from Harry Potter hits me when you say that. That was the big moral of the stone from Harry Potter, and so
I didn't read that one.
Really, very, very interesting stone. So you flip it over and you bring back your dead love. You can bring back a dead loved one to be with you, but it's always more of an interference than it is a help. Like it's always more of a burden on your soul, and it brings you down, and it's never the person you want it to be. And it's like you can see them decaying and dying, and then
kind of like the monkey's paw. You got a wish, but the wish was always screwed up, kind of. I read the first one of those books a long time ago. I never read the rest. Maybe I will now. I thought the first one was good, but it just struck me as a kid's book, and I did like the ending. And I'm like, okay, that was a really nice lesson to the ending, and that was a really good book, but it didn't like shine to me like Terry Pratchett would,
Oh yeah. No, the most interesting thing about the books that have always struck me is that the way she did the artifacts, and I get a lot of my artifact writing from her. So, so
maybe I'll read the rest of the book. Have you read all the books? I take it.
mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you're suggesting them, I will give. I might turn back to them and give them a try. I don't have as much time for reading right now as I'd like.
Oh
Yeah.
I don't know, when did vampires really start getting like popular in writing? Because like you can go back. Vampires are generatively newer age writing. You do get older. Hence like Dracula and stuff like that, but that's very old school, and you don't see it as it's not. I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say. The writing is a lot different than from that vampires to vampires.
It's like Anne Rice kind of sexy vampires from like,
right.
Dracula. Bram Stoker was, I never read all of Dracula, but it does have some really chilling scenes in it, which were considered horrible by the Victorian audiences. There's one scene where Dracula comes into his basement lair and he has like a satchel full of babies, tosses it in the corner, shit like that. But I think if you go back, it's funny, I was just listening to a lecture on Old Norse ideas about remnants and, vampires and zombies and stuff. And generally, these things were looked on as like really bad. They'd bury someone, they put a lot of rocks on top because they don't want you coming back kind of deal. It wasn't, I don't think it was romantic at first. I think that was the Victorians. They romanticized everything. And then they had this whole idea of the vampire was the woman who was like, her seductive power is ruining these young men and they're wasting their vital essence, if you know what I mean, and all this stuff on these terrible women. That are just
spirituality.
With the frayed cuffs, you left your compass on the side, weighed next to a half-finished glass of gin. I watched you walk toward the tree line. The landscape didn't even flinch. The architecture of the forest closing like a heavy velvet curtain behind your leather boots. The name is scratched into the wood. Underneath the desk, no one touches. We keep the files in the basement, where the damp rot eats the ink. Where the damp rot eats the ink. Forevermore. Earther chased the sound of wings, that rhythmic beating over the hills. He returned as a grainy image, a smudge on a piece of cheap paper. Sarah looked too long at the lake. The surface tension broke her. She dissolved into the silt. I am still standing in this lobby, straightening my collar for the press. So much noise. Drinking to forget the altitude, drinking to ignore the lack of air. The map is just a collection of stains. The mountains are cold and indifferent. We are just collectors of absences, filing away the people who left. The name is scratched into the wood. Underneath the desk, no one touches. We keep the files in the basement, where the damp rot eats the ink. Where the damp rot eats the ink. Gone into the grave, gone into the grave forevermore. Left their shoes in the dirt. The tide is high and empty. The tide is high and empty. The sky is heavy and empty. The files are heavy and empty.
It's like, what did I come back to?
Well, that's the whole thing with the lotus flower. It has this beautiful bloom on the surface of the lake, but its roots go down to the muck and the mud. So you've got this wonderful transient beauty, but it ultimately derives from that muck, and that's sort of a story of life.
See you clearly.
Yeah, I don't.
Like you in the
It's frozen on my side. I don't know about you guys.
Like
Moving a little bit.
you look like a younger version of Stevie Wonder.
Ah.
Got to rock back
Okay,
and forth a little bit.
Naruki.
No, I mean like seriously, you got the glasses on and then the hoodie and everything. You look like Stevie
Yeah,
Wonder.
there you go.
Yeah.
Our special guest tonight, Stevie Wonder. Surprise!
There we go.
If the light was on, freaking, we would know that you're not Stevie Wonder, but you're like playing video
Well,
games.
see, that's why I gotta keep it dark.
Keep them guessing.
Oh, playing video games in the light, that gives you a headache. You gotta have it nice and dark. Especially when you're playing Doom 2, different kind of mods. Yeah. I play more Doom 2 mods than I do any games from my Steam library, and I have like 500 games.
Only 500 in Steam library? You're slacking, man. You're slacking.
Yeah, I know, right? I've had my account for, I wouldn't say, since I was 17. I still haven't played most of my games.
Right.
You never play them all. I still have games.
I don't think I have. I have a long enough lifespan. I'm gonna have to pass down to my kid. My kid's gonna have to pass down to their kids before they all get played.
my son came here and he had like a 2 terabyte hard drive full of freaking nothing but games that he had from Steve, and he looked at me like I was wrong because I didn't have that many games on my Steam account.
Mine's 4 terabytes.
Actually, it's interesting you mentioned about giving your games to your kids, because there is currently a US legal battle with Steam and Valve in relation to ownership.
Payment processing. Yeah, payment processing. Big payment processing legal suits, and I mean,
right?
It's because Valve holds the contract for payment processing through Stripe, and then so Steam was trying to figure out a way to be more independent, to sell their products independently because of their new computer that they came out with, and so the Steam machine, is that what they called it, or
Steam
whatever?
Yeah. Steam machine.
They came out with that, and they wanted to get their own payment processing, but they had a contract with Valve and Stripe, and it's a whole legal payment processing suit. And anyways, the whole problem became that these payment processors were blocking certain or games that they didn't like because of political scenes or because of violence or porn or nudity or whatever it may be that they deemed unnecessary, and then they said, well, we don't do that, we sell to everybody, it's an equal market, and then they would go behind and say, oh, you can't sell that, well, we won't let you process payments if you sell that game. So,
wow. Obviously, I mean, you can hide things in a contract by putting it in small print or just overloading people with legal jargon and just the amount, these things. So
in Europe, under EU legislation and a lot of EEA legislation, contracts must be displayed in a way that is understandable to the average. That is reasonably understandable to the average.
reasonably. You just don't appreciate your own language till you go to a foreign country that doesn't have the courtesy to speak English. It is, after all, the dread and envy of all other and hence lesser languages. It's the coming language. Everybody used to speak Latin. We should all speak English.
Like a Brit going over to the US.
Got me talking.
I knew we could do it.
Yeah. So we rewrote this. This is this is the hooked Harry Potter.
Another script. I'm having a hard time with the physicality of this on my computer because again, it's frozen for me.
Yeah, I can see and hear you. No breaks or nothing. So you sound good. That's all that matters here.
Yeah, I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I like that. The pale administrator of endings. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I know. I was just thinking about that.
Very important.
I was thinking that Bob and I were working on the Seventh Seal project, and the last thing we produced on that, I thought, was some of the best stuff that we ever came out with in our collaborations. And I was just looking at that, but that was like 6 months ago, and everything's gone haywire since then. For various reasons, but I do want to get back to that. I was actually working on a little bit of a script for that the other day because I was just going through my project. Oh yeah, that thing. Oh wow, that's really good, isn't it? Gee, sometimes I have to wait a couple of months before I listen to something I did. It's like, shit, that's not bad, I listen to something I recorded, and I'm playing at the time, and I'm like, Jesus fuck, I can barely listen, and I'm screwed up. But I listened to the song later. It's like, wow, we actually sounded pretty good. I did, it sounds like I know what I'm doing. It's very weird.
It's almost like I've done this before.
Yeah, it's like I've been doing this for like 11 or 15 years.
While he's taking a break, I'm gonna grab a bowl. I'll be right back too.
All right.
Oh man,
kicking in now, so I'm doing okay.
and go smoke a bowl.
I'm in a nice legal state, so I can just go down to the corner store to the dispensary and get whatever I want, kind of deal. Is it legal where you are, V?
Of course.
Excellent. Always glad to hear that.
I don't think it's not legal anywhere.
But basically is, yeah.
I've been buying gummies everywhere I go.
And, even when it wasn't legal around here, I never had trouble finding supplies.
For states that are...
Oh, now you're breaking up a little.
Well, I think so. The thing is about that. I think the thing about that is, so they have this new chemical that acts like THC. It's completely synthetic. So for the states that don't want you to have a dispensary and sell THC, they have a even more powerful chemical, the synthetic, that acts like THC, and that's legal. I think they call it G9 or something like that.
Well, I know in this state they've got something.
K.
You can't sell that in New York, but the one thing they do have is stuff that doesn't have like amounts of delta 9 THC, but it has THCA, which is completely legal. But once you apply heat to it, it converts to delta 9 THC, and it's in all pot.
Right.
They breed it in such a way that it goes through the loophole. So we've got, like, where I'm sitting, there's like maybe 4 dispensaries, state licensed dispensaries in town, but there's probably about a half a dozen so-called smoke shops that sell THCA. And I know people that smoke it, and they can't really tell the difference because it's just like a regular chemical that they bred the plant to have, kind of deal. So we had that K stuff here in the state. I was working at a head shop at the time. All the other stores were selling this stuff, and people were having psychotic episodes and breaks and shit. And like
that was
the other employees were telling the owner, "You got to sell this stuff. They're making a fortune." And she was like, "No, I'm not going to sell something, no matter how much money I would make." I really like working for them. It's like, I'm not going to do anything harmful to the community. And we probably missed out on.
Now I know why you're not a professor. You wouldn't let the weed go. I got gummies.
The thing about crystal meth is you do the crystal meth and it gets you all wound up. So you smoke the pot to come down, then you do more crystal meth. You can save a step by just not doing any.
It's not doing anything.
Too much coffee makes me nervous. The crystal meth is just it makes you do weird stuff. That's all I'll
chips
say.
and all this garbage. But if you're high on meth, you're cleaning the kitchen. You are making meals. You're preparing things. And then when the marijuana kicks in, you got the munchies. You got some good culinary food waiting for you.
I was gonna say I went out with a meth head for a while, and it was like, and I was trying to get away from it. I moved out of town where I was living, and I'm out in the country and this and that. And like her brother said, "You got connections. We got money. Come on, let's go. Come on." And she was always like, "Come on, come on." Like, that's why I don't live there anymore. But
it's a good idea.
All right, guys, let's read this.
All right.
I gotta run. Night campfire crackles in an abandoned barn. The pig stretches out near the warmth. Two Blades sits in shadow. The others rest against crates or barrels. Snow falls quietly outside. The pig begins to speak in a low voice.
Before the frost learned to fall downward, there was a man who carried two blades. He came from the west, where the land steamed with blood and oranges. In that skin, he called himself El Cachilo, double the Spanish two blades. Always west. Why do myths always start from the west?
Probably because the sun dies that way.
He wasn't sun. He was incision. The clean cut. He could cut a mountain from its shadow. And one day, he came to a field no one plowed because it remembered Keith. Oh, great. Another curse-filled story.
The pig interrupts sharply.
Not cursed, remembering.
The pig pauses.
Fields don't forget what you bury in them.
Flashback begins as the barn flickers with the pig's memory. The companions fall silent as the tale takes hold.
This was Pangaea. The barn was new. I was smaller, but still too large. Lord Edworthy had taken the land. He thought he could shape it with stone and reason. This place had its own geometry and its own hunger.
Enter Spanish two blades, approaching a strange fence. Lord Edworthy waiting. The barn looms behind them, wooden and alive. Spanish two blades says to Lord Edworthy, "You called for steel or prophecy? I bring both."
I called for silence. This place breathes too loud.
They stood at the edge of the harrowed field, and under the soil I turned.
Back to the present day.
You were in the field? How was the field? I was the offering. I was the appetite.
And he entered anyway.
He always does.
Return to flashback. Spanish two blades steps through the grate. The barn creaks. Air thickens. Something behind the straw moves. "Show me your mouth, creature."
So I did.
The barn's door fly open. The young pig erupts from within. The two clash. Steel against hide. Scream against scream.
This is not the contract.
No, it was older than your parchment, older than your crown. How did he win? He didn't. He cut me, yes. He bled the barn until it wept fire. But victory? Let me guess. You let him go. He said thank you with both blades, and I remembered the taste of mercy, so I let him reincarnate. Wait, that's how this works? You allow reincarnation? I require it. Someone must carry the memory.
Two blades stared into the fire. I dream of barns sometimes.
Then you're ready.
The companions fall silent. Snow gathers against the barn doors. The pig licks his teeth and hums something older than melody.
Would you like me to tell you what he whispered as he died? No. Yes.
Only if it rhymes.
Two Blades takes a blade and begins to sharpen it. Help me, but this time I want the ending different.
Then you best write it with your hands.
The barn creaks softly. Something under the floor shifts.
The tale is not finished.
The pig spoke slow and deliberate.
It began long before your calendars learned to count, when the world was one land, one breath, one bleeding tooth. Back in Pangaea, where the rock still steamed and the sky was close enough to whisper into. That's where I first met him, the man with two blades. Not your version. He was Spanish then, elegant, wounded, unapologetic.
Wild card interrupted.
Wait, you're saying you remember Pangaea? I remember the taste of every century. Some linger longer.
The heavy grunts.
You say you fought him? We danced. That's different. He came with another, Lord Edworthy, a noble name for a man full of cowardice. That's another morrow. The barn wasn't a barn then. It was a shrine, a vault. They came seeking something buried beneath the ash, and they found me.
What were you then?
I was hunger, dressed in flesh. Kind of hunger you don't feed, it feeds you. And he brought questions. Always the same questions.
Do I ask them too? The pig pauses.
You are the question.
Scene shifts into memory.
This ground is cursed. I feel it in my marrow.
Then we must dig deeper. Curses cling to shallow men. The pig in memory, and with a younger voice.
You dig and forget the soil is watching.
They opened the shrine, broke the seal. Heat poured out like memory, too bright to forget. They thought they were ready.
It's alive down there.
So am I.
The fight was not a fight. It was a forgetting. His blades kissed bone, and I sang through my broken skin. You lost? I learned. He didn't kill me. He carved me into something that waits.
Back to the present.
So, why tell us this now?
Because your two blades has arrived again, and the field is harrowed. You want revenge? I want rhythm, the old rhythm. Strike and scream in silence till the next verse.
And if I refuse, the pig smiles.
You won't. You never do.
and scene.
Welcome to the point of gathering, where minds unite, people